Have you ever wondered why the deepest spiritual fractures are always the quietest ones? The kind that slip beneath the noise of sermons, the comfort of routines, and the confident certainty people wear like armor. What if the crisis that shapes the destiny of the modern church is not loud, not visible, not debated, but hidden in the silent places where truth is surrendered long before anyone notices? Dietrich Bonhoeffer warned that the most dangerous deceptions are not the ones shouted from pulpits or broadcast through culture. They are the subtle distortions that nest in the conscience, eroding courage, one compromise at a time. You feel it, don't you? A dissonance beneath the familiar rituals, a growing tension between what is proclaimed and what is lived, a sense that something essential has been quietly displaced. And the unsettling question is this: if the crisis is silent, how many have already been shaped by it without ever hearing its arrival? There is a reason Bonhoeffer insisted that truth must be experienced as a wound before it becomes a liberation. A truth that comforts without confronting is not truth, it is anesthesia. A faith that demands no cost is not faith, it is decor. And perhaps that is the reason this silent crisis spreads so easily, because it asks nothing, disrupts nothing, and yet consumes everything. It thrives where people cling to the appearance of devotion while resisting the weight of discipleship, where spiritual language becomes a substitute for spiritual life, where the cross is admired from afar but never carried. You can feel the tension tightening even now, can't you? A question rising beneath the surface, insisting to be faced. What if the crisis we fear out there is already rooted in here, shaping our silence, our choices, our very perception of God? Bonhoeffer knew that the soul's greatest danger is not external persecution, but internal resignation, the slow, quiet surrender to what feels easier, safer, more acceptable. And this is why the silent crisis is so lethal, because it teaches us to live divided, to speak without truth, to worship without obedience, to believe without transformation. Yet every quiet surrender leaves a trace, a fracture, a whispered reminder that something sacred is being exchanged for something hollow. You sense where this is going, although the full revelation has not yet been spoken. There is a truth looming just beyond the edge of these words, a truth Bonhoeffer believed the church could no longer postpone. If you continue watching, I will show you what he tried to reveal. But understand this: once you see it, you will not be able to unsee it. There is a moment, subtle yet devastating, when the soul realizes it has been slowly reshaping itself to fit a silence it never consciously chose. And it is in this quiet betrayal of the inner voice that the crisis Bonhoeffer foresaw begins to unfold, like an invisible shadow spreading beneath the surface of a life that still appears faithful on the outside. You sense it before you understand it, a slight dulling of the convictions that once felt unbreakable, a soft retreat from the truths that once demanded courage, a gentle slipping into a version of yourself that feels safer but somehow smaller. And the unsettling question that rises, like a tremor beneath the foundation of your being, is not, when did I stop listening? But when did I begin pretending that I still was? Bonhoeffer observed that the gravest spiritual dangers do not present themselves with noise or confrontation. They arrive as quiet accommodations, as subtle rearrangements of conscience masquerading as maturity. You feel the weight of this, don't you? The sense that something sacred inside you has been negotiating terms without your permission, and each compromise leaves a faint bruise on the part of your identity that remembers who you were meant to be. This is where the silent crisis truly begins, not in rebellion, but in erosion, not with a shout, but with a whispered surrender. And perhaps the most haunting aspect of this entire descent is how natural it feels while it is happening. How effortlessly the heart adapts to its own diminishing, how the conscience learns to reinterpret its discomfort as something else. Exhaustion, balance, wisdom, even humility, anything except the truth that something essential is being abandoned. Bonhoeffer saw this mechanism at work in an entire generation, a slow dulling of spiritual discernment disguised as prudence, a willingness to avoid conflict dressed up as unity, a gradual acceptance of the intolerable disguised as patience. You know this pattern intimately, even if you've never spoken of it, that moment when you start softening your words, not because love requires gentleness, but because truth requires courage, and courage feels too heavy to lift. That moment when you begin to applaud what does not inspire you, agree with what does not convince you, tolerate what once pierced you. This is not hypocrisy, it is survival. Or at least that is what you tell yourself, as each step of retreat feels a little easier than the one before. But deep inside, in the quietest recess of the self, a question forms. If I keep losing small pieces of myself in silence, who will I be when the silence finally breaks? Bonhoeffer warned that the most dangerous spiritual illusions are not the false doctrines shouted from platforms, but the subtle ones whispered into the conscience when it is tired, afraid, or longing to be accepted. These illusions do not argue with you. They soothe you. They do not confront your weaknesses. They cradle them. They offer you a faith that costs nothing, demands nothing, risks nothing. And before you realize it, you have embraced an imitation of truth that makes no demands on your transformation. And somewhere in this quiet exchange, the soul falls asleep standing up, wearing the language of devotion while drifting ever further from the weight of discipleship. But even as this happens, there is a faint trembling underneath, an ache that refuses to die, a memory of spiritual clarity that was once so radiant it illuminated everything you touched. You can feel that memory now, can't you? Pressing against the walls of the silence you've built, insisting that the truth you buried is not dead, merely waiting. But the deeper question, the one Bonhoeffer forces you to confront, is this. How long can a soul postpone its awakening before the silence becomes indistinguishable from surrender? There is a kind of deception that does not need to announce itself because it grows inside the spaces where truth has been neglected. Bonhoeffer recognized it as the quiet reshaping of the heart, the slow bending of the inner compass toward what is comfortable rather than what is right. And perhaps the most frightening part is that this bending does not feel like corruption, as it feels like relief. You stop questioning certain behaviors not because they have become true, but because questioning them has become exhausting. You stop resisting certain compromises not because they are now righteous, but because resisting them isolates you. And without noticing, you begin to walk a path that is smooth, predictable, socially acceptable, yet spiritually hollow. You tell yourself you have not changed. You are simply wiser, more balanced, less intense. But wisdom without conviction is merely fear in disguise, and balance without truth is merely apathy wearing a noble mask. Beneath all these layers, something sacred begins to fracture. And even if you silence the symptoms, the break continues to deepen. And deep inside, a whisper rises. If the path has become this easy, is it still the path Christ marked for me? Bonhoeffer believed that the spiritual crisis of his era was not born from loud rebellion, but from passive compliance, the kind that grows when people stop listening to the quiet dissonance inside them. You know this dissonance, the friction between the person you appear to be and the person you fear you are becoming. It shows itself in small moments. The half-hearted prayer, the sermon that does not penetrate, the worship that feels more like performance than communion. And suddenly you realize the crisis is not around you. It is within you, forming itself like a shadow behind your outward obedience. You begin to sense that you are drifting from something essential, something you once held with trembling certainty, something you no longer know how to carry. And here lies the tragedy. You still recognize truth, but it no longer moves you. You hear conviction, but it no longer wounds you. You speak about God, but the words no longer ignite you. Something in you has grown numb, and the numbness pretends to be peace. But Bonhoeffer whispers across time, peace without truth is merely anesthesia, and yet beneath the numbness, something stirs. A memory of the fire that once burned inside you with a purity that could not be faked. It is faint, but it is there, rising through the layers of compromise like a forgotten ember waiting for oxygen. Bonhoeffer taught that truth has a relentless nature. It does not disappear simply because you ignore it. It waits, pressing against the conscience with increasing intensity until the soul either awakens or breaks. And perhaps this is the moment you find yourself in now, feeling the crack beneath the surface, the pressure building inside your silence, the unmistakable sense that something is calling you back, not to shame you, but to awaken you, not to punish you, but to reclaim you. And the question that forms, painful, urgent, unavoidable, is this: what part of you must die so the truth inside you can live again? There comes a time when the soul can no longer maintain the fragile balance between appearance and authenticity, when the tension between who you claim to be and who you have silently become reaches a breaking point. Bonhoeffer understood that these moments are not accidents. They are divine interventions. They are the trembling beneath your certainties, the heaviness you cannot explain, the sudden recognition that your spiritual vocabulary has outgrown your spiritual reality. And as this recognition sharpens, the silence you once used as protection begins to feel like a prison. You sense the walls closing in, not violently, but with an unrelenting pressure that exposes every corner of your hidden compromises. The question arises sharp and luminous. What if the crisis you fear is not coming toward you, but rising from within you? And in this revelation, the soul trembles, because it knows the truth is approaching, and truth never arrives quietly. Bonhoeffer insisted that truth does its deepest work only when it confronts the parts of us we have spent years avoiding. And this confrontation is rarely gentle. It strips away your justifications, your polished explanations, your carefully constructed persona. It reveals the fractures you tried to hide, the cynicism you disguised as maturity, the resignation you called acceptance. You begin to see that the crisis was never silence itself. It was the person you became inside the silence. And as this realization forces its way into your awareness, a spiritual trembling moves through you, like a call you can no longer ignore. You sense that you are standing on the threshold of something irreversible, something that will require a choice you can no longer postpone. Remain in the soft, suffocating comfort of a faith without cost, or step into the raw, unsettling clarity that true discipleship demands. And the question that pierces the moment is this: if the truth finally speaks, will you have the courage to answer? You can feel it now, the undeniable stirring of an awakening long overdue. The silent crisis is no longer silent. Its presence pulses beneath your skin, calling you back to the truth you abandoned, not out of rebellion, but out of exhaustion. And Bonhoeffer's voice rises here, unmistakable, urging you to see that this trembling is grace, not judgment. For only those who still carry a spark of truth within them can feel when it begins to rise again. And as it rises, a final question begins to form. Slow, heavy, luminous, a question that will decide everything that follows. How much of your life has been shaped by silence, and how much will be reclaimed by truth? Do not rush the answer. Let it echo, let it sink, let it reshape you from the inside out. For the revelation that awaits you next is the one Bonhoeffer believed the church could not postpone forever, and you are standing at the edge of it now. It is here, in this quiet unfolding after the storm of revelations, that everything converges, not as an ending, but as a return to the place where truth first stirred inside you. What you have witnessed is not merely a crisis described, but a mirror held before the hidden corners of your own becoming, a reflection that now lingers like the final chord of a symphony refusing to fade. Bonhoeffer understood that the soul awakens not through noise, but through the gentle insistence of what can no longer be ignored. And perhaps you feel that insistence now, a pulse beneath your certainties, a breath within your silence, a distant calling rising through the fractures. The journey through these shadows has not answered every question, but it has awakened the ones that matter, the kind that stay with you when the world grows quiet again. And in this stillness, a truth emerges with the subtle force of an inner dawn. Transformation does not begin when you understand, but when you choose to stop running from what already knows your name. Let this thought settle like a seed beneath the soil of your awareness, for it will grow in moments you least expect. So if something within you trembled today, even slightly, do not dismiss it. It is the echo of your own awakening, the signal that the silence you once feared is now becoming the ground where truth takes root. And as you stand at this threshold, allow one final whisper to anchor itself in you. The crisis loses its power the moment you refuse to remain silent. Carry this with you, let it guide you beyond the borders of this video, and if you felt the weight, the beauty, or the urgency of what was shared, step further into this journey with us. Share your reflection, let your voice break the silence, join the community that chooses truth over comfort. Like, comment, subscribe, not as routine gestures, but as the first small acts of a life that will no longer be shaped by quiet surrender.